Welcome to the final Salesforce Republic Meetup in 2020. So for some of those who are new to this, here's a little bit of the context behind Salesforce Republic. So me and my colleagues here at Third Republic, we founded this group over a year ago now, and it's more of an agnostic Salesforce group aimed at all the professionals to not only see how we can further optimize the platform, but also see how we can get more out of the wider ecosystem. And then alongside our meetup, we've also got the Salesforce Republic community, which is a community where we share a variety of our curated content. So that's some Q&As that we've done with like CTAs for people entering into the ecosystem as well. But tonight we've got Liam, lovely Liam. We've got Dan from the LDN Apprenticeships, who will be giving some talks around how we want to try and get more talent into the ecosystem. So yeah, let's kick things off with Liam.
So first of all, a very Merry Christmas to everyone. I've even included Holly at the top there for everyone to get in the festive spirits. So today I think it's a really important topic, the topic of getting new talent into the Salesforce ecosystem. So we're going to start off with who am I? So my name is Liam Heppenstall. I'm a Salesforce Administrator at B.Braun Medical. B.Braun are based in Sheffield, in Chapeltown, if anyone knows the place. I have worked there since 2018. And the reason I sort of wanted to get involved with this topic is I actually joined Salesforce in 2018 through a placement scheme. So I actually went to Sheffield Hallam University. It came to my placement year and I saw an opportunity in B.Braun revolved around Salesforce and the management of the system. And I thought, yeah, that's right up my alley, that. So I applied, I was successful, and I'm still there to this day. So I finished up my uni degree and I went back there and I've not looked back since. So that's a bit about me. Coming back to the statement at hand. So when we say, let's get new talent into the ecosystem, what do we actually mean by an ecosystem? Because honestly, since I've joined in 2018, I've heard the term being thrown around like hot potato, but no one's actually sat me down and said, this is what an ecosystem is. This is what it consists of. Now, it is a bit of an open question here, but to me, I define it as it's a community. It's a community of organizations and or people who share one common interest. And of course, that's Salesforce. Now, when we split that down, it splits down into two categories. We have the customer engagement. So really, that's the customers of Salesforce, people like myself, the end users. Now, Salesforce provide three solutions, products. Firstly, Trailhead. It's a fantastic resource. It's a free resource where anyone, whether you're a Salesforce professional or whether you're just wanting to understand a bit more about Salesforce, you can go on Trailhead and you can learn about the platform free of charge. Fantastic. The second one is Trailhead Community. And a lot of people in this call will have already had exposure to that. I know we know what that's about. So we log into Community. If we've got a question as an end user, we can flag that, we can ask that without having to raise a case with Salesforce.com. Equally, we can answer questions. And this is something I've tried to be proactive in doing recently. You know, it's about giving back to the community. If someone's got a question, let's log on and let's answer that because it's about giving back. And I think it's not just that. Me as an individual, if I am actually going out of my usual duties at B.Braun and I am experiencing other industries and requirements from other industries, I'm equally able to get some input there and further my development, let's call it. The third and final one, I've heard mixed reviews on Idea Exchange. I mean, I think the concept is fantastic. You know, as end users, as partners, any Salesforce professional can log on and they can say, hey, Salesforce, by the way, this would make your platform better. Here's what you should do. And actually, I was on Idea Exchange today. There was a requirement for a project I'm working on that we need to be able to click an object tab and we've got a list view and we need to be able to sort that list view depending on one of the tabs along the top. So the criteria, the columns by a field. Now, there's an idea that's been open for 13 years that's had 21,500 upvotes. And someone called Jeff from Salesforce Support said, this is on our roadmap. But right now we're wanting to work on performance enhancements. Okay, you know, it's been open 13 years. It's had a lot of traction. Why are we not implementing it? So there's sometimes things that go through there that go through treacle and just stay there infinitely. But some things, you know, will move along the life cycle super quick. And I think the platform as a whole to be able to log on and provide feedback and it's picked up from Salesforce support. No other company does that. You know, I think that's a fantastic platform. On the flip side, we've got end users, but we've equally got partners. Now in partners, obviously we've got consultants, we've got ISVs, independent software vendors. An example of that is Adobe. We all know Adobe. They actually have an app on the App Exchange, similar to DocuSign, if anyone's come across that. The ability to allow, internal users that use Salesforce or community users to sign documents. So that's just an example of Salesforce are creating an ecosystem that anyone can be involved in. There's a lot of profit to be made, and Salesforce could turn around and say, no, we want to create all the functionality. You have to wait. They're not saying that. They're saying anyone can get involved. Anyone can develop on this platform. Anyone can benefit. Big plus. Then the ecosystem extends to the product suite, of course. So we've got the two flagship products from Salesforce, Sales and Service Cloud. We've all heard of that. Marketing Cloud is another one, a fantastic resource that we're implementing in B.Braun at the minute as well. Commerce Cloud, the newly acquired MuleSoft, which is, again, a fantastic resource. And a big one for me at the minute that Salesforce are really focusing on is the industries. So now we're starting to crop up stuff like Financial Cloud, stuff like Health Cloud. They're really starting to delve into each individual industry, which is huge. So to the naked eye, us as Salesforce professionals, we will look at this and think, this train is never stopping, it's not slowing down, okay? But don't just take my word for it. We only have to look at the research. So IDC estimates that by 2024, there's going to be an additional 4.2 million jobs. That's huge. Now, this forecast, this estimate was released the back end of 2019. I personally think this is probably going to be roughly around 5 million. Now, we only have to look at the recent acquisition of Slack at 27.7 billion. Who knows what that's going to look like on the platform, but we know it's going to generate some more jobs. It's going to be huge. Now, 4.2 million, it's kind of like a finger in the air, but what is the strategy to get there? And this is kind of where we start to come in. People that are new to the platform, of course, but equally us as end users, us as partners, us as Salesforce professionals, okay? I would say it's a 3-step strategy. The first one being we continue doing what we're doing. We inspire the people to pursue Salesforce careers. And I know Jonathan Fox is not on the call. You may have heard of him. He actually came up with quite an inspiring story not too long ago. He was a veteran in the military, and he came out of the military and he was actually at a family barbecue. And his cousin said, oh, Jonathan, have you come across Salesforce before? I really think this will be up your street. And his answer was no. So he went away and he did some research. And lo and behold, where he is now, he's now a lead developer at a successful cloud consultancy firm. Now, to me, that's inspiring, ex-military, come out of there and he's managed to reskill into another role just like that. I mean, obviously not just like that. He's put the work in, but it's inspirational. Now, me and my team at B.Braun, Tom and Matt, colleagues, we are working with Sheffield Hallam University at the moment, and we're trying to get a module in for final year students to work on Salesforce. Now that's going to be huge, because as it stands, you go through university, you leave, you haven't got a clue what you want to do. You end up getting a job and you work there. Do you enjoy it? Maybe, but actually Salesforce, having that exposure to it in the final year in one of your modules, you can start to get a flavor for, okay, is this a career I want to go into? So before they've even left university, they maybe already have a career lined up. And that's quite important, I think. Now, the second point, we'll come on to discussing this shortly, but, employee commitment, that's exactly what we need. End customers, partners, and I'll come on to discussing that in a bit further. The third point, ensure job seekers have opportunities to connect and network with each other. This is something Salesforce has always been able to do, I think. They've never had a problem doing this. We only have to look at San Francisco, the Dreamforce event. Coming more locally for us, London. We've got London's Calling. We've got the World Tour. Break that down even more. We've got calls like this. We've got the community groups. There's ample opportunity to connect with experts in the industry. So I'd never believe anyone that comes to me and says, Liam, there's never any events. I'm struggling to connect with people. The people that say that are clearly just the people that have not gone out and done the research into this. There's ample opportunity to be involved. So one thing that I've come across more recently, actually, is that, I believe there's a common misconception, certainly when you're finding your footing in the industry. Now, let's picture someone who has never had any exposure to the Salesforce industry before. Okay, you take one look into Salesforce, you see that there's hundreds of jobs, hundreds of certifications, and you sat there thinking, okay, what do I do here? What career do I want to go into? And you kind of need to take a step back and think, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Do the analysis, and then understand what do you want to do in your day-to-day job. And I think that will drastically influence what career within Salesforce you want to go into. So that's for people coming into the industry. I still think this stigma exists with people like us, the existing Salesforce professionals. Now, we've got hiring managers that know they use Salesforce, but what resource do they choose? They'll look at someone like myself and think, oh, Liam, great. He's a Salesforce professional. He can do everything to do with Salesforce, everything. No matter what product, he knows everything. He can do it all. Yeah, that's definitely not the case. The thing is with Salesforce, to be a successful Salesforce professional, and you'll see this more in consultancy, you need to pick a niche. You need to find the product that best fits you. So for example, if you're a company and you go to hire an external consultancy, with that, you get a project manager, you get someone who specializes in sales and service cloud, you maybe get someone who specializes in community cloud, in marketing cloud. Pick the right person for the job. And that's the same for both the hiring manager and a project manager. It is a stigma in the industry. We're good, but it'd be physically impossible to know everything about the platform, I think. So pick your niche. So what can we, because I think looking at the audience on this call, I don't want to assume, but I don't know if we've got anyone that's completely new to Salesforce, or we're all, we all know what Salesforce is capable of. So I've tried to split this down. So firstly, what can you as an individual do? And when I refer to you as an individual, I mean you as an end Salesforce user. Okay. So I've provided 3 options here. This is definitely a lot limited. There's many more options here. But the first one, become a mentor. I make that sound so easy, become a mentor. It's a lot more difficult. You've got to apply, you've got to dedicate the time, but really this is a win-win. Not only are you providing expertise and knowledge to a mentee, but equally, if you don't manage a team, you're getting the experience of being able to train someone up. And I think that's so important in the industry we work in, because as a job, no matter what role you're working, you are responsible for delivering something to end users, okay? Being able to translate technical jargon into business requirements and clearly explain what you mean. So I think it's a win-win on both cases. The second one, again, I've spoke about my journey, but higher placement students, graduates, apprentices, and hopefully Dan's smiling now because this is what he's going to be talking about later. But it's so important. Now, of course, if you've got a certain project that's strict on a time scale where you need certain expertise, it's not always feasible to say, hey, let's get someone new in who doesn't know anything about the platform. Of course, utilize expertise, get consultants in to deliver on that. But why not, if you've got a greenfield approach, a greenfield implementation, why not bring in a consultancy to work on the project, but equally bring in some new talent so they can gain some experience from the implementation, and then post-implementation, they can then handle the change management to do with that org and any configuration changes, okay? Third and finally, again, I've spoke about this, Trailblazer community. As an end user, it's expected that you have some expertise in your industry with some form of requirements. And there's hundreds of questions a week on that thread. So just be active, be proactive. If you've got a spare 5 minutes, jump on. If there's a question that you can answer it. It looks good on you because it shows that you're capable of answering certain business requirements, but equally you're giving back to the Ohana, you're giving back to the community, and that's what it's all about. What about if you're a partner? What about if you're a consultant? If you're a partner, Salesforce have recently released a scheme called the Salesforce Talent Alliance. Now, what they say is per year, you have to dedicate 20% of the people you employ has to be new Salesforce talent, okay? And it's quite a big commitment that, but equally Salesforce rewards you on that. So point number 1, obviously it's pretty apparent you will become a much more diverse employer. Point number 2, Salesforce prioritize you. So when it comes to things like career fairs and events, you will have first dibs on that. And we all know how sometimes things can sell out and you're kind of left in the dark and you can't get them. It's first dibs, brilliant. Third, free vouchers. Again, Salesforce certifications can be quite expensive. They start at $200 and they can go up to thousands depending on what you're sitting. You know, the technical architect ones can go up to thousands in some cases for the courses as well. So point number 4, scorecard bonus points. And this is something specific to the partners. So you can get up to another, I think it's 25 points you can get up to on Trailblazer Score for partners. And 5th, arguably this is the most important, amplify your voice. You know, if Salesforce recognize you as an employer of choice, then brilliant, kudos, you're going to get more business through the door. But equally, it's about reputation. And if you own your own consultant business, clients don't just analyze the skill set of the consultancy. What they want to know as well is what is the reputation of that consultancy. So if you've got a track record of employing new talent and you can demonstrate that, you know, this has been a success, your reputation will go up and you're an all-rounder business then, you're a team player. So for those in the call that are new to Salesforce, or maybe if we've not got anyone, at least we can relay this information when the time does come. There's so much you can do to upskill. Charity work. Now, before we do charity work, we probably need to start on Trailhead. Understand the platform, understand the technicalities of it, and just become better at what you want to do. If that's a Salesforce admin, there's many different trail mixes out there where you can truly focus on one role and you can learn a hell of a lot. That then probably branches onto charity work, you know, get real world experience. You might not be getting paid, but in this instance, experience is a lot more invaluable, okay? Going out there, getting real world experience from them, real world requirements, mapping them into technical solutions, that's truly invaluable. And if you do that for 6 months, even 6 months, you know, I think that will drastically increase the chances of you landing a job. Secondly, free cert days. This is something I came across not too long ago, and it was actually last Wednesday. I attended a class for 5 hours based around the App Builder certification, and it was free. So it was a certified Salesforce instructor delivering a 5-hour session on how to prepare for being a certified app builder, completely free of charge. And not only was it free at the end of the session, they actually gave you a $70 coupon code to go and sit that certification. So it's huge. Now, you probably noticed in this list, I've left off certifications, and there's a reason for that. You know, certifications, it's a bit of a gray area in the industry in that, is it certification versus experience, or is it or is it or? The reason I've left it off here is if you're new to Salesforce, a certification should not be the last thing on your mind, but give it some time. And the reason I say give it some time is you need to build up some form of experience on the platform, firstly with the technicalities on Trailhead, but actually with applying real world examples through things like charity work. Because if you run into getting a certification, yes, you have a piece of paper. What does that mean? You know, you might land yourself an interview, but when they start asking you about what do you do in this scenario, you maybe can't answer it. And the reason you can't answer it is because you've had no experience. So the two come hand in hand. So never rush into a certification if you're not truly ready for it. Again, the opposite of mentor and mentee, it's invaluable. You'll gain, the mentee, of course, will gain invaluable knowledge there. They can ask any questions they see fit. So it's coming back to that point on the mentor, they need to allocate some time. But if you're a mentee, at any point, if you've got any questions and nothing's a silly question, you can message your mentor and get a response pretty quickly. Network and Salesforce user groups kind of come hand in hand. It's such an important step in anyone's Salesforce career, both new and existing. You know, the term networking is so important. You speak with experts in the industry, you speak with partners in the industry. So if you're working on a project and someone's done a demo at some user group, you automatically think, oh yes, they did that demo. Can we use that? Let's get them in to do another demo. So automatically you become more knowledgeable on the platform just by connecting with these people around you. And finally, again, Trailblazer community. I've put this in quite a lot of the slides, haven't I? It must be because I truly love it. But the Trailblazer community, again, a fantastic resource. If you're new to Salesforce, ask all the questions you need to on that community. You know, I think it's safe to say all the Salesforce professionals don't have a problem with answering any questions. You know, it's a give and take relationship in Salesforce. We don't just take the paycheck and run. We take the paycheck, but we equally give back as well, and the community represents that. Okay, in the light of it being Christmas, I thought, hey, let's do a quiz. So just a disclaimer here, we are going to show the leaderboard at the end. They're not technical questions. They're not Christmas questions either. They're just fun facts about Salesforce. Let's start. So you should be getting a countdown now. Now this is time-based. You get 20 seconds to answer each question. Okay. So whoever said 1999 was dead on. And you can see there's a note at the bottom there. So actually, a fun fact, Mark Benioff rented a one-bedroom apartment, and that's how Salesforce was created. That was their head office when it was first founded. Salesforce originally had the rights to an application name, but Mark Benioff gifted the name to a company. What was the application's name? And I believe this was in 2003 this happened. Brilliant. Again, vast majority. App Store, correct. So Mark Benioff actually said in an interview, and I think I put it at the bottom there, yeah, he had an interview, and in 2008, he gifted it to Steve Jobs. Anyway, next question. Salesforce recently acquired Slack, but at what price? I'm going to be disappointed whoever gets this wrong, because I actually said this in the slides. So this is a measure for who we're concentrating now. Brilliant. Again, vast majority were correct. 27.7 billion. That's the biggest acquisition today. And I think that means that they're on 61 acquisitions since 1999. So they're not mucking about. Approximately how many people attended the original Dreamforce event back in 2003? Oh, mixed response there. Very low number, right? In 2019, we didn't have a 2021 unfortunately, but in 2019, nearly 200,000 people flew over to San Francisco to attend Dreamforce. So how many customers does Salesforce have to date? And this is an approximate, by the way. It's not a dead-on figure. Again, mixed responses. There's not that much in it. 50K, maybe there is. But yeah, just over 150,000 customers worldwide. Approximately how many employees does Salesforce have to date? You knew this question would come in after me asking how many customers they have. Okay, so yeah, some got it right. 49,000 to date, which is a 40% increase from 2019. Huge. Hopefully everyone gets this one who works with the Salesforce platform. How many releases do Salesforce publish a year? Brilliant. Is that 100%? Oh, quality. Well done, guys. Yeah, so 3 a year, labeled winter release, spring release, and summer release. Okay. Mark Benioff is the cousin of David Benioff, but which TV series did David create? Oh, yes. Vast majority. Game of Thrones, yeah. He's the creator of Game of Thrones. So approximately how many apps are published on the App Exchange to date? Yep, perfect. I'll take that. The majority selected 3,500. Yeah. I think it's just over 3,500 to date. Okay, so prior to becoming the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff worked as an executive, but at which company? And he was actually the youngest, without giving this away, the youngest vice president at age 26. Okay, so 10 questions. That was the end. Tom, you floored it. So unfortunately, there's no prizes, but you know, the prize is it's Christmas and we're all here together. Well done, Tom. Well done, Dylan. Well done, Matty. Some good scores there, though, guys. Fantastic. So that's the end of my presentation. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, Liam. And there's definitely some overlap in your slides with what me and my colleague Rob are going to be going through now. So yeah, I've got Rob on the call, who's our kind of marketing manager from LDN Apprenticeships. He helps me out on this Salesforce specific apprenticeship as well. So first of all, how this is going to work is I'm going to hand over to Rob. He's going to take us through a little bit of background into us and apprenticeships in general. I think they've changed a lot in a short space of time, and I think hopefully now people are starting to realize apprenticeships are a lot more in the kind of digital age, and hopefully debunk some myths that anyone might have. So we're going to touch on apprenticeships in general, LDN apprenticeships, and then he's going to hand over to me, and I'm going to talk to all of you about kind of the Salesforce specific apprenticeship and how we're starting to help out, consultancies, end users, and candidates as well, people that are looking to make that move into Salesforce.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob. As Dan mentioned, I'm the marketing manager. Cool. So yeah, as Dan said, I'll just go through what an apprenticeship is really quickly before Dan gets onto the sort of specifics about the Salesforce apprenticeships that we have on offer. As he mentioned, apprenticeships have changed quite a lot over the past few years and over the last year, actually, all things considered. And I think sort of the way we do things at LDN Apprenticeships is sort of slightly different as well. So it'd be quite good to quickly run through that before Dan goes on to the Salesforce stuff. So how does an apprenticeship work? Cool. So to put it into very simple layman's terms, in terms of how apprenticeships work in 2020, the way we deliver them is under flexible learning programs. What that means is twofold. So we can deliver them virtually, like a lot of apprenticeship providers now, and we can deliver them in class as well. We actually started delivering our apprenticeships virtually towards the end of last year. Little did we know how crucial that would be to essentially keeping the business alive and apprentices in apprenticeships by the time March came around this year. So we're able to do that. And also what that means is it encompasses all different types of learning as well. So it's things like masterclasses, there's online learning assessments, lots of different things that Dan will be able to touch on specifically about the Salesforce apprenticeship a bit further on. It's full-time work. So alongside the learning, it's also full-time work. So again, to put it into sort of layman's terms, it's 80% on the job working and 20% doing your apprenticeship work. That's obviously not to mean that, one day out of the 5, they're sort of stuck in a corner doing just their apprenticeship work. They're both actually, they intertwine quite well. So anything that an apprentice does in their everyday work can actually go towards their 20% off the job learning as well. And that's all sort of gathered on our learning journal that we use as well. An occupational endpoint assessment, it sounds very boring. It probably kind of is. Basically what that is towards the end of the apprenticeship, the apprentice has an assessment, they'll have an exam, and I'll go through something called Gateway, which is sort of an apprenticeship term, where we sit down with the employer, the apprentice, and make sure that they're ready for their big exam at the end of their apprenticeship. So who can be an apprentice? A fair few people. As long as you're over the age of 16, pretty much anyone can be an apprentice. Predominantly our current apprentices on programme are mostly school leavers, so GCSE and A-level, when they've just finished that. We also have graduates on our apprenticeships as well. So that's recently increased actually since the introduction of the Salesforce apprenticeship, because it is a level 4 apprenticeship. It's quite an advanced learning scheme, and it's 18 months as well, as opposed to our level 3, which is 15 months. So graduates as well can be an apprentice. People who are looking for a career change. So we've had a few of these as well, sort of. They've actually increased, I'd say, probably over the past year or so for obvious reasons. And it's people that are sort of maybe, to put that towards, Salesforce apprentices, it's people that have maybe seen where their passion lies and gone to do sort of trailheads and learn about Salesforce on their own. Or they've just used Salesforce within the business, really attached to that and really wanted to start a career within Salesforce. And current employees as well. So we can, apprentices on program can be upskilled. So business might already have a colleague, but they don't have the facilities or the time to train them. We can do that here as well. So they're pretty much at sort of a very brief overview of who can be an apprentice.
I think just on that, it's important to highlight, obviously Liam touched on his route into the ecosystem. I think one thing that apprenticeships can do is kind of adapt to any route. I think, especially with the program of Salesforce, what I've found anyway, working with people that are looking for careers, like when they realize what Salesforce and the jobs that people can get within Salesforce, that they're quite excited by it. And I think we've had a complete mix. School leavers that have been deciding whether they go into work or they go to uni have come onto the program and use that as their foot in the door. We've had graduates, but in a completely different field. So we've had sort of English graduates that have actually come out of uni and realised actually I need to get a job, and I see Salesforce is a good way for that. So I think it's just important to highlight there is so many different options that apprenticeships are being used for, and I think it's really great to see, because not everyone gets that chance of kind of going to uni and then kind of moving into a role straight after that.
Cool, yeah. So what sort of companies are involved in apprenticeships? So all types of companies. So we work with Warner Brothers, who are what we call a levy payer. I'll touch a bit more on levy payers and non-levy in a couple of slides' time. So big companies that basically dip into their levy pot that can only be used for apprenticeships. And we also have what we call non-levy businesses like fan finders, who perhaps don't have as big a UK employee scheme as Warner Brothers, but can still sort of benefit from the advantages of taking on an apprentice as well. Why is an apprenticeship a good option? So a little bit about sort of our background and sort of why we do what we do and why we deliver apprenticeships. I think that number has actually increased 727 since we put this slides together. So that's probably near 750 apprentices placed in our 10-year history. 84% all-time achievement, 91% positive progression. To put that into perspective, the nationwide stat for all-time achievement sort of sits at around 55 to 60. So it's quite an increase in that. And 91% positive progression. So that's either after they've completed their apprenticeship, they're hired full-time by their employer, or they go on to further education, or they go to another employer, but within the same field of apprenticeships where they did their qualification. So overall, 3 out of 4 of our apprentices are hired full-time by their employer once they complete their apprenticeship. And a little bit on our inclusion and diversity stats. So 44% of our apprentices on all of our programs are from a BAME background. 40% of those female learners are female, which for, we're an apprenticeship provider that provides predominantly tech apprenticeships and tech pathways. To have 40% of those learners on program as female is something that we're quite proud of and always looking to improve as well. And 21% of those apprentices receive free school meals. So we also look into the idea of trying to help people that were perhaps from an underprivileged background, that maybe don't have the opportunity to go to university or have the contacts to start a career within, whether that's Salesforce or IT or software development. We're able to help that as well. And I think as well, Dan, further down the line, you'll be able to go in a bit more detail on the stats regarding Salesforce specifically. Funded by the government. So I'll quickly run through levy and non-levy. So levy payers, normally with 100 to 150 employers or above, the training costs are taken out of the levy pot. So that levy pot can only be used for apprenticeships. Non-levy payers, slightly smaller businesses, 95% of their training costs are subsidised by the government. So as a business, you would only pay 5% of the training costs. And you can also levy share as well. So levy share is where you're able, a bigger company is able to use their levy pot for smaller businesses and pay that additional 5% of the training costs. Current incentives as well. So current incentives currently lasting from the 1st of August to the 31st of March. It has been extended by a couple of months. It was initially going to end. Businesses who take on apprentices that are between the ages of 16 and 18 get a £3,000 bonus from the government. 19 to 25 is a £2,000 bonus from the government, and 25 plus it's a £1,500 bonus.
Thank you, Rob. I think it's good just to set the scene. I think it's important to kind of highlight some of the reasons why people might take on apprenticeships. And I think the stats that we have, and I drill down into Salesforce specifically, in a second, because I think that really shows a really good picture about kind of our apprenticeships and what they're doing. So yeah, let me tell you a little bit about the Salesforce apprenticeship. So this started kind of earlier on and at the start of the year. So we were working with a number of consultants, Salesforce consultants, based in London, and what they were doing is they were placing apprentices onto software developer apprenticeships. So it was a great way of them to get younger, more diverse people into junior levels within the business. But that apprenticeship itself wasn't quite fitting the bill for what the role of somebody in a junior sort of functional consultant role within Salesforce was actually doing. So we worked with some of the names at the bottom there. So Presedo and Westbrook and Ignito, they helped us right from kind of when we actually designed the program, and then R3, Silver Softworks and Aspire Serum, they joined sort of later when the program was already set up. But effectively what we did is we took a step back and said, okay, let's look at these job roles that these people are doing. You can see there the typical job titles: junior Salesforce consultant, junior functional consultant. We looked at the apprenticeship standards that were available, and what we decided on the level 4 IS business analyst was probably the most likely to fit. So we looked into it further and further and realized it actually was a really good fit. So the program itself is based around the apprenticeship standard level 4 information system business analyst. The duration of that apprenticeship is 18 months long. What that means is there's 15 months of learning for the apprentice, and then there's a final 3 months where they're kind of finalizing their portfolios and they go through that endpoint assessment that Rob touched on. With eligibility, again, can be used for anyone that's already in-house at the consultancies, or it can be for new hires that they were bringing in. And when I go into the stats a little bit later on, I'll show you kind of a mix of where that's actually come into effect. But this was kind of the first stage in us in creating a pathway of kind of younger people into junior Salesforce roles. So this program is exactly how we've sort of aligned it. So we've looked at a typical project life cycle of somebody that would work within a Salesforce project, and this is kind of the 4 pillars that we've sort of decided upon and mapped the occupational brief within the standard too. So we're using the scope, design, build and deploy method. So that's quite common about, for many people that are in kind of a data analyst role, a sort of junior project manager type role. But the thing that makes this Salesforce specific is the Salesforce certifications built on top, and also the personal and professional effectiveness. So I hope I'm not saying this out of turn, but most people technically could go on to trailheads like Liam touched on, work through the system and get to the point where they actually pass the admin exam and sort of continue their learning on the platform itself. I think where those consultancies were really looking to strengthen that workforce is this middle piece here. How is their interaction with key members around the business? How are they modeling data and gap analysis within a business? And how can they present that back in a way that the users can understand that? So that's really where the apprenticeship sort of comes in. So if I look at the apprenticeship progression, I think this is important for anyone that might know someone that this could be suitable for, would look at sort of something themselves. It's important for us to look at progression of the learners that we have on the program at the minute. So before they start, we sort of give them an understanding of the Salesforce ecosystem and how they fit into that. So that's some of the things that we do before they even start onto the apprenticeship. In the first 6 months, it's very content heavy. So we sort of push them towards their administrator certification. So bear in mind, most of these people haven't actually got real life experience in using the platform, but have maybe dived into trailheads. So the first 6 months we focus on that administrator certification. And to be honest, I think with most of the consultancies that we're working with, they're actually shortening that down to 2 or 3 months, because at that point they can then be billable onto sort of client projects or be working on projects if they were, say, at a larger end user. So that's kind of accelerated a little bit. In the first 6 months, we're also heavily sort of pushing them through the content of the developing personal and professional effectiveness, because we think that's obviously so important to get that sort of ingrained into them as early as possible. Then the second half of the first year, so months 7 to 12, the good thing about this is that, we'll work with them towards their second certification. However, this isn't, it doesn't have to be sort of outlined before they start or anything. So with the second certification, we can be quite flexible on what they actually what path they take within the ecosystem. So if there's a certain need within the business to go down a certain route, then the apprenticeship kind of allows them to do that. And likewise, if the apprentice has a keen interest or shows a strength within say Pardot, for instance, they can also go down that route as well. So it is quite flexible. So that's kind of the second half. Obviously, by that point, we're saying, we're hoping that they've delivered 1 to 2 smaller projects on an independent or nearly independent sort of basis. And then that final 6 months of the apprenticeship is where we would see them really take off. So working on projects, if feasible, independently, and working on either the second certification or any further, depending on their progression, because we understand that people progress at different kind of rates. So that's the Salesforce Consultant Apprenticeship that we launched in September. So we do realise that there is kind of a need for a step before that. So in regards to the consultant apprenticeship, it's a level 4 apprenticeship, and majority of the successful learners have been graduates. So we think there is a real need for people that are kind of just leaving school, just completed their A levels, and we think this program is kind of perfect for that. So it's a level 3 apprenticeship, so it's not as onerous as kind of the level 4. The duration is slightly smaller, so the duration is going to be 15 months, so that's 12 months of learning plus 3 months for their endpoint assessment. So the apprenticeship standard is slightly different. This is based around the digital applications apprenticeship standard, and you can see there the typical job titles. This is very much aimed at people that are just starting in a company as a Salesforce administrator. Again, eligibility is going to be open to everyone, and this program will be launching in February next year. So in my mind, I see as a natural progression that if I was just leaving school at 18, I could enroll onto this apprenticeship. So I'd work with an employer as a sort of junior Salesforce admin, complete this apprenticeship over 12 to 15 months. And then I would look at going into the level 4 Salesforce Consultant Apprenticeship, where I could then further my knowledge even further. So that's kind of the picture that we're seeing at the minute, to try and give everyone at all different stages of their career an option to sort of come into the ecosystem. So outside of those 2 programs, we're also looking at a developer program that we're going to be working on. I think that's sort of later on next year, but I think the success that we've had from the Salesforce Consultant and the professional side, that's really kind of opened us up to look into what other routes are people taking, and what other needs do employers have for them to have that option to diversify their workforce through apprenticeships. Now, I wanted to touch on diversity. So these were the stats that I mentioned that I can now share with you because the program's live. So it really does sort of tell a picture. I think, if I start with the age, so just to explain this, on the left-hand side, you have the applicants. These are people that applied for an apprenticeship for that role. The candidates were the ones that are kind of successful or eligible. So with apprenticeship funding, there are eligibility requirements. So that's kind of the middle piece. And then on the right-hand side of these are successful apprentices. So people that went through the process with us and the employer and were successfully placed in a junior Salesforce role. So if we look at the age, for instance, exactly what Rob touched on before, majority of our applicants coming within that 19 to 25 age bracket, because we saw quite a high number of graduates that were applying as well. I think as you look at the apprentices piece, 80% are in that 19 to 25-year-old age bracket. But what is really nice is that there was, a small number of 16 to 18-year-olds. So although it's quite a high level course for someone to complete straight out of A levels, there have been a couple of younger guys that are really successful and really switched on, and they've started at the role. And likewise, there's also been a very small number. There's one guy called Paolo, I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning his name. So he's slightly older. He's 33, had a career in retail, and then realised Salesforce is such a great career prospects for him, and decided that he wanted to go down the apprenticeship route and was successful at Procedo, a consultant based in London. So really nice to see that there has been a mix on kind of the age side. The gender piece tells a really great story as well. When Rob mentioned the percentage stats, at 40% of our apprentices in total are female, this stats is one that I'm most proud of, I think. So if we look at the applicants, so if you can see there, 70% of all of our applications that we received came from guys, came from men. And I think in a tech program, it was kind of to be expected. And I think when I spoke to employers, it was something that they were expecting as well. But if we then go forward and look at the actual apprentices that were placed, 65% of those apprentices are in fact female. So it completely flips on its head. And that's really great to see for a tech program where there is a big agenda for getting female into Salesforce roles. Apprenticeship delivery. So how does it actually work? You know, what does a kind of apprenticeship look like? So there's a number of different ways in which the content is actually delivered to the learners. And these are just some of the examples. So we have our online learning platform. So we have a system called Litmos. It's actually very similar to Trailheads in kind of how it's done. Our skills coach will then put sort of content onto that learning management piece, and he can track the progress of each of the learners on there. We have the live sessions, which I think Rob mentioned. So these are monthly live sessions where the learners will sit down as a group and bring all of their learning sort of to life. Coaching, so our skills coach has a one-to-one coaching session with each of the learners based around the work that they're doing in the workplace and how they can then evidence that against the apprenticeship qualification. Trailheads, it wouldn't be a Salesforce program without utilizing Trailheads, so obviously that's in there. Masterclasses, so with everything being virtual and this program being delivered across, you know, all over England, one thing that is important is that there is that sort of face-to-face interaction amongst our learners. So once a quarter, we're asking all of our learners to come to a sort of neutral location, and that's where we're delivering an expertise class face-to-face with each of the learners. And then you have the projects. So what's really nice about Salesforce projects is that the Salesforce projects that they do in the workplace are sort of aligned perfectly to the evidence they have to show in their apprenticeship to complete their apprenticeship. So it's just really nice how that transitions across from workplace into apprenticeship standard. How to be involved. So that's kind of it from me and kind of the information. I think one thing I just wanted to touch on is how we're kind of supporting employers. So one thing that I do is kind of sit down with anyone that's in a kind of Salesforce admin role and say, you know, is there a need for an apprentice in your team? Is there somebody already in the team that's working on Salesforce or would benefit from the development of the apprenticeship? But also, with that new program that we're launching for Salesforce admins, we are putting together a Salesforce advisory board. So one thing that I'm glad Liam mentioned is Jonathan Fox. I think I've had a number of conversations with him, and we're going to be asking him to join the advisory board. Christine Marshall, who's one of the leaders of I think she's the Bristol user group, she's joining the advisory board, and there's a few other people that are really going to help us hit the nail on the head with that administrator program as well. So if you do want to get involved, just drop me an email or give me a call, and yeah, we can talk about it further.
That was awesome, Dan and Rob, both of you. I appreciate that. I think not just for this audience, but we're putting this out on our community thing as well as how do we get more people to do this, because I think there's some huge end users out there who could potentially facilitate in getting admins in or apprentices into this ecosystem, and vice versa. There's probably lots of the partners that some of the people on this meetup might be part of, or in the wider community. How do they get involved? Is it going to be like a use case, or how does it all fit together really?
Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I think the best thing to do is to just kind of talk to us about what you're thinking. If there's somebody, and I've done events like this, and then sort of the next week I've actually spoken to someone that, that they're actually certified, but they're still looking for that route into the ecosystem. And I think Liam touched on it before, is certifications get you so far, but there is other things. And I think the people that we're speaking to understand that with an apprenticeship, they're expecting them to be like a clean slate. So I think that's kind of the key is, if there's somebody that you think is trying to get into the ecosystem, or a company that is, maybe struggling by having people rotate within the business all the time, just speak to us. Apprenticeships are a great way to build loyalty and for people to gain that experience that they are struggling to get their first sort of admin or junior consultant role. So that's go online, have a look at the apprenticeship program, because there's a lot more detail on there. And then, just get in touch and we can pick up the phone anytime.